Story 1. Buying thousands of bitcoins as soon as they become available. Investing in Google, Apple, Amazon, and Nvidia. Story 2. I am excited to experience intimacy again. My high school girlfriend was very attractive, and we did not engage in this as much as I would have liked. Story 3. Get assessed for attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder. Starting medication at 34 was life-changing. Find a foundation that matches my skin tone. Most importantly, stop worrying so much about being liked and tell people to go away if they deserve it. Story 4. When it comes to school, I would try to put myself out there more and do several things differently. Story 5. Get my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder diagnosis as soon as possible. My life would have been a lot easier if someone had informed me about it. Late diagnosis is a bittersweet experience. Story 6. I would stop being so anxious, work on my health, eat better, and focus on my career goals. I would also avoid pornography and engage in conversations with women. Story 7. Dropping out of high school at that time was a bold decision, disregarding the truancy laws of 1979. I was clinically depressed and severely bullied, yet I excelled in college. With my current knowledge and absence of phobias, I would perform even better now that I am in my 60s. I would continue to attend community college and strive for excellence in my work. If I were expelled, I would seek legal counsel. This is all assuming I was sent back to my 16-year-old self in 1979, not that my current self is de-aged. Being 61 with a 16-year-old body would likely lead to complications, possibly ending up in El Salvador. Story 8. Instead of being in a relationship with my girlfriend, I decided to pursue something casual with a friend who expressed interest in a casual relationship. Story 9. I would wait 10 years until I met the woman of my dreams, the one I missed my chance with this time. Story 10. Get my driver's license because the other things I want to do would likely require transportation. Story 11. Never start smoking. Be nicer to people. Do well in school and get into a veterinary medicine program. Write notes to remind myself to invest in Bitcoin, Apple, Google, and Monster energy drinks from day one. Seek ways to prevent tragic events without facing imprisonment or being committed. Attend all the concerts I wish I had gone to. Story 12. Have a hysterectomy. I suffered horrific pain for most of my adult life that could have been avoided. I was always more interested in adopting anyway. There are so many children and too few parents. Then, I invested my Hickory Farms income in all the obvious things and just enjoyed the life that I had. Story 13. I am going to eat a 1980s-sized Snickers bar, buy a large 3 Musketeers for the road, sit on the dock, and actually plan on living to 54 this time. Story 14. Buy Bitcoin, be nicer to people, especially my parents, pay attention in school, be kind to all my teachers, help my friends and other kids in school overcome their hardships, and study art like I wanted to before being convinced to pursue something more practical, which I never used to find a job. Story 15. I would find my current boyfriend so we could have our whole lives together. It's only been a year. He is 50 and I am 38. I wish I could have met him sooner. Story 16. Do I just de-age to 16? Do I keep my knowledge? Or do I go back to my 16-year-old self in time? All of that matters. Story 17. Ask out that attractive person whom everyone thinks will reject them, when in reality they rarely get approached. Even if they do reject me, so what? It's better to take your shot than to hide in the corner. Story 18. I fought my brother and then the school bully. I kissed the girl I had a crush on but was too scared to talk to. Story 19. Sleep. Proper, long sleep. No more energy drinks. No more late nights on the computer. No more, I'll just sleep tomorrow. After everything that happened, a good long sleep is what I need. Story 20. To be honest, I would probably have been more open in my late teens and early 20s. I rejected a lot of women thinking I had found the one. Story 21. Start hormone replacement therapy earlier. I started at 19, but it would have been easier at 16. Invest more money. There were a few investments I wanted to make, but I chose to buy other things that turned out really well, and I missed the opportunity due to purchasing other important items. Story 22. Back in time, or is it the 16th today? If it is back in time, I have some investments to make. Assuming it is the 16th today, I would feel sad because it will be years before I am among my peers. I think I would relax and coast a little. I would get a job and earn some money for travel instead of focusing heavily on academia. Story 23. If I could go back to 1986, I would take better care of myself and try to be more social. I would ask that girl out, even if she ends up breaking my heart, knowing I will survive. After that, I would focus on being responsible and invest whatever money I have. I would strive to make the world a better place. If I just turned 16 now in 2025, I would probably seek therapy. Story 24. This would be around 1988. The money I received from my grandparents, approximately $1,400, was invested entirely in Microsoft and Apple. Story 25. It is unclear whether I would go back in time or just become younger in this case. If I could go back in time, I would truly converse with my grandparents about their lives and gain a deeper understanding of their experiences. If I were to become younger, I would not want to go through high school again, but attending college again would be appealing. Story 26. Start saving for a couple of years to invest all my money in Bitcoin and begin my gender transition immediately. Story 27. Start working out. Join the military at 18 so I don't end up living in my parents' house well into my 20s. Talk to more positive people. Story 28. Go to the army first. Then get my degree in human resources, secure a federal job in human resources, and enjoy a comfortable life by contributing to my 401k and buying a condominium. Story 29. I am definitely getting out of my comfort zone and focusing more on applying myself and participating in sports and enjoyable activities rather than seeking acceptance from others. I experienced a lot of anxiety and did not engage in extracurricular activities because of it, which has made me feel stagnant later in life. I wish I had started sooner. Story 30. To talk to that girl more, I was too shy and insecure. I still think about what could have been. Story 31. I feel really uncomfortable being a 35-year-old in the body of a 16-year-old. I have repeatedly attempted suicide and, if I succeed or become incapable of trying, I won't endure this nightmare again. Story 32. Spend more time with my dad, grandfather, and grandmother asking them about family history, as I will be burying them all in the next 10 to 12 years. Start a carnivore ketogenic diet and stick to it. Take care of my first car and fix it, as it is now a classic. Invest every dime I have into gold and continue until 2025, selling at the highs and buying at the lows along the way. Story 33. Drop out sooner and get my general educational development credential to expedite my college process and hopefully receive additional financial assistance. Additionally, I will focus on my core and avoid relationships until I attend physical therapy and hopefully meet the love of my life sooner than I did. Story 34. To avoid any butterfly effect, I wouldn't change much, but I might buy Bitcoin or a stock that is selling low and has the potential for a high price increase. Story 35. 1. Start working out regularly. Invest in Bitcoin, Netflix, Amazon, and Google. Buy land when it is affordable. Skip college and learn a trade instead. Story 36. I am frustrated to be back in high school. I am half shocked I didn't harm anyone. I am unsure how I made it through mentally. Story 37. Assuming it's like I'm transported back in time, I am leaving my parents' house. If I have just turned 16 in modern times, I guess I can enjoy having fewer responsibilities. Story 38. Focus on your education. Inform my family members about potential heart attacks. Alert my best friend that he may experience a seizure that could be life-threatening. Anyone can pursue wealth, but I am determined to save lives. Story 39. The obvious thing to do is to save up all the money I can, buy as much Bitcoin as I can afford, sell it off, invest half the money in reputable establishments, and give a generous amount to my parents because I want to be a good son. Then I will put the rest in a savings account. Story 40. Since I'm 26, that only gives me a decade or so. I should start investing in things I know will become valuable in a few years. I want to take school a bit less seriously and be more social sooner. Some of my preparations for the final exams are so ingrained from all the studying I did that I could probably coast through them. I should consider pursuing a shorter degree at university. I want to give my aunt a heads up about her heart and try to alert a few other people about issues I know they will face soon. I need to start preparing for a vacation to Japan in July 2019. If sounding the alarm doesn't work, there is someone I need to deal with. Story 41. Reaching out to organizations that support youth and being honest about my situation. I don't feel safe at my parents' home and need help finding stable accommodations and a job because looking for a place to stay every day or two does not provide a good environment to thrive in. Story 42. Buying Bitcoin, then I am slowly going to move far away. Just when I have enough, I will buy out the corporate entities and force them to become wage earners to make a living. Those in government will get paid based on their performance before each term. Story 43. Skip university and invest $1,000 in Bitcoin when it was 10 cents. Provide as much information on the Ukraine war as possible. Take advantage of the oil stock drop to achieve significant gains. Build affordable housing and receive rental payments from the government. With $1 billion, I could potentially acquire 10,000 apartment units to rent out, generating an income of $5 million each month. I would allocate $100,000 for expenses and use the remainder for amortization and property maintenance. Story 44. I know that my family is being abused. They are doing it on purpose. It won't get better. There isn't support available. You aren't protecting them by hiding it. My first step is to move my money to an account that my family does not have access to. I need to start talking to adults who can help avoid homelessness. But this time, they should not drain your account. It is important to run and not try to win them over. Story 45. I am running away to live with my aunt. I will try to live as normally as possible and focus on being happy and loving myself. Story 46. Convince my childhood friends to focus on acquiring land in the wilderness and investing our money in building materials. Story 47. Grow up. Get your head out of the clouds. Realize that you are not perfect, that you have flaws and need to work on them to improve yourself. Nothing comes naturally, you have to work for what you want. Story 48. Get out of my comfort zone, study harder, start working out, and get a job to save extra money. Story 49. Go back to being 46. I do not want to deal with the exams, studying, and drama of high school. I do not want to go through university again and write another 10,000-word dissertation. I do not want to spend my entire life questioning whether I should make a different decision when a specific situation arises. If I had to become a younger age, I would choose 28. I would have graduated from university and obtained my certificate in English language teaching to adults. I would be living in South Korea, and I could warn my best friend there to get screened for bile duct cancer. Story 50. For some of us, that means going back to the 1980s. Assuming you're 16 again means revisiting that age. I would love to relive the 1980s and 1990s with my current knowledge. I would also be prepared for health problems instead of being blindsided by them. It would be strange to know what is going to happen to everyone before it happens, as I would retain my current knowledge. I would know who will do what and when. I could influence many events, changing my history as well as that of others, depending on my decisions. I would not have wasted as much money on trivial things. I would have made the usual investments and purchased a house. I'm not sure how I would meet my current significant other if I changed too much, as the choices I made brought me to where I am now. Different choices from age 16 onwards could seriously alter the trajectory of my life. Story 51. Make a doctor's appointment to get diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It has negatively impacted my life, including my education, career, and relationships. I believe that if it had been treated much earlier, I would still have a chance. However, when I was 16, it was rarely diagnosed in girls. Story 52. Hit the gym with a plan, learn to relax, and manage anger. Write a movie I know by heart and sell it. Story 53. I pushed my principal against the wall as hard as I could, repeatedly, until someone pulled me away. He was difficult to deal with, and I spent too long trying to restrain myself in the face of ongoing unfair treatment. It might have been better to just spend time in juvenile detention. Story 54. Get a job or two, live with my parents forever. By Yahoo at its initial public offering, then invest in Google's initial public offering, and then retire. Story 55. From my current knowledge, I know my home wasn't normal. Before my mom destroys my spine and ruins my chances to leave early, I'm making an escape. I feel I don't have support or love, and I need to find my self-worth. There is so much I'd love to accomplish if I only knew how. Story 56. Keep my money, take school more seriously, make good investments before COVID-19 hits, and work on my relationship issues before it's too late. Story 57. Buying a large amount of Bitcoin, cashing out when it peaks at $100,000 AUD, retire to do whatever I want. Story 58. Work out more, care less about others because I did too much and not enough for myself. Focus better on school and realize there's a plan beyond college. Story 59. I would definitely do better in high school and change my dream job from art to accounting. I would be much better off by now. Story 60. I memorized the winning lottery numbers for the week of my 15th and 20th birthdays, specifically for this kind of situation. In this case, the first step is to write down the numbers and instructions to buy during my birthday week in case my current knowledge magically gets wiped away or I somehow get sent back to 2025. The second step is to persuade my dad to stop smoking and go to the hospital for his cancer treatment. He passed away when I was 22. I would change that course of history if I could. The third step would be to gather funds to buy Netflix stock and to purchase Bitcoin when I turn 21. The fourth step is to avoid intimate relationships with my then-girlfriends. I plan to remain celibate during my teenage years if I can. Story 61. As a young gay man of 16, if I could do it all again, I would charge more for my body and not make finding a boyfriend the ultimate goal. Story 62. Immediately begin building Habitat for Humanity houses and volunteering in any way I can to help maintain a robust and productive community. Story 63. Education to the highest level is essential. Engage in sports and martial arts. Show love and respect for your parents. Consider investing in Bitcoin since its introduction. Story 64. I would tell my former high school special education teacher what I truly think of her. Not place all my trust in the assistant principal from high school, and not slack in my classes. Story 65. I am putting all my effort into singing. I have decades of training, but it is too late to start a meaningful career. At 16, this would have been a staggering head start. Story 66. It depends if I am 16 now or in the past. If now, I would treat my education and health more seriously, start regularly exercising, including stretching, and eat properly. I would not be afraid of rejections, date more, meet more people, and focus less on what others think. If back to when I was 16, I would do all of the above, plus invest in Bitcoin when it arrives, sell it at its peaks, then rebuy, invest in Nvidia, hold Bitcoin, real estate, and stocks, and live a wealthy life with my family. Story 67. Eat better, start participating in sports that I enjoy earlier, gain more work experience, and truly enjoy seeing my friends every day. Story 68. In 1995, I would be more confident with the girls I was hesitant about. I would confront my stepfather much sooner and skip the unnecessary emotional drama that I once thought was important. I would embrace the bizarre situations that would arise, like my struggles with German after forgetting so much, and I would learn intimate details about people without them ever sharing. I would avoid pointless friendships, refrain from smoking, get in shape, and focus on building a career rather than chasing the experiences I pursued the first time. Story 69. Put more focus on my education and learn a new language. As soon as I turn 18, I will start doing part-time jobs. Story 70. Bitcoin was very inexpensive. Consider investing in it. Start going to the gym as I am struggling later in life. I should have tried harder in sixth form to enhance my prospects. It has taken a long time to advance in my career. I need to create a pension and savings plan based on my early part-time jobs. I want to spend more time with my family. Story 71. buying Bitcoin and Amazon stocks the moment I turn 18. Otherwise, I will live life better and ensure that my relationships with friends and my girlfriend are well maintained. Story 72. Dive headfirst into a deep, overwhelming depression over the loss of my family. This kind of thought experiment loses all its charm after having children. Story 73. I would immediately shout that school is not for me. Let me complete my diploma early and not 1 year late. After that, I would treat my long-distance Turkish girlfriend a bit nicer and stop caring about other people's opinions because we are all going to die regardless of anything. Story 74. There are two ways to look at that. One involves get-rich-fast schemes. The other allows you to make better decisions based on the experience you have now, despite lacking knowledge of the future. I would invest more time in school and relationships, end that unhealthy relationship, seek therapy because I now recognize I have clinical depression, consider officer candidate school instead of being drafted, explore law instead of computing, and avoid smoking altogether. There are probably many other choices I would make. Story 75. I am trying to improve my life in new ways as I have new ideas. I aim for better academic success, even if it's just a little improvement. I have cut off ties with most of my classmates, as none of them genuinely cared about me, except for one person who was actually my friend. However, after high school, I may cut ties with him too, as he only reached out when he needed something. I want to avoid getting involved with certain people again and focus more on learning Japanese, which I have the opportunity to do. If I achieve better grades, I will have a better chance of getting into my university of choice and studying subjects I am genuinely interested in, rather than irrelevant material. Perhaps working in specific places again wouldn't be so bad since I now understand how those environments function. I could work there as a student rather than a regular employee. I want to avoid certain jobs and look for positions that are closer to home. I would love to meet my best friend and encourage them to believe in themselves more, while also suggesting they distance themselves from a negative influence in their life which they already dislike. I plan to change classes so I won't be stuck with certain individuals, and, most importantly, I want to avoid the negative teachers who made my life difficult. While I might miss the friends I have known for years, I won't force my way into their circles if they don't include me. Being alone isn't the issue. The problem is being lonely, which I want to avoid. There is little I can do about my family, but I can strive to be more independent while also offering them support. If I were to go back to being 16, that would mean reverting to a significant year for me. It would be fascinating to see how things would change. I doubt I could handle the loss of my pets again, but their passing shaped who I am today, making it a necessary struggle. Story 76. 16 now, or 16 when I was 16? Because if it's now, I'm heading straight to the nearest euthanasia clinic. Story 77. Spend more time with my mom. She passed away too early, and so much was left unsaid and undone. Achieve financial independence quickly. I wish I had consulted a financial planner when I got my first proper job. Stop trying to conform to what a partner wants. If they don't match your vibe, they are not the right person for you. Once a quarter, buy or invest in art. It nearly always appreciates compared with jewelry. Story 78. I would go to my grandma and spend as much time with her as possible. I would tell my boyfriend that I love him, and I would seek psychiatric help as soon as possible. Story 79. I was 16 in August 2001. I feel inclined to try and stop the events of September 11th from happening. I am trying to remember specifics, but it's a struggle beyond American Airlines Flight 11, United Airlines Flight 93, and American Airlines Flight 175. The fourth one eludes me without being able to look it up. Other than that, the Pentagon and the Twin Towers were hit, and it was orchestrated by Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. There were 19 hijackers whose names I can't remember. It depends on whether I have time to prepare or if I am suddenly transported back. Story 80. Wait, are we becoming 16 again in 2025? Or do we get to physically go back to the time when we were 16? If it's going back in time to when we were actually 16, then it would be asking that one really weird guy in my grade to introduce me to his older brother. The boyfriend and I went to the same high school, and I was in the same graduating class as his brother. If I'd started dating the boyfriend when I was in high school, he would have been 19 at the time I was 16. It would have saved me a lot of grief later on with my ex. Story 81. I was living on my own at 16. I would have saved more money if I had known how things would be now that I am 21. Story 82. Teach and share my knowledge far and wide to hopefully avert the current crisis the planet is facing. Perhaps the millennials and Generation Z can enjoy the same experiences that the baby boomers did. Story 83. I am studying biology, attending university, avoiding relationships, and living at home until I qualify as a dentist. Story 84. Even though my first joint was at 25 years old, I am now 32. I have decided to never take drugs and to stop smoking cigarettes. I have been smoking since I was 14, so I have more years of smoking than not. It is starting to show in my energy levels. Story 85. I would approach most things the same way except for enrolling in university right after school, which would have been at 18 instead of 21. Story 86. I am trying to explain the situation to my wife, who is in her 40s, and my teenage children in a calm manner. Story 87. Save myself from 12 years of abuse by not dating my first partner. Other than that, I would push to get medication for my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. With that and my current knowledge, I would do great in school. I would also pick up a camera sooner and spend another 10 years doing something I love. Story 88. Start a lifelong habit of yoga, tai chi, and meditation. I would prioritize healthy eating, allowing untold amounts of creative energy to flow into all areas of life. This, combined with my current knowledge, would provide a solid foundation for diverse and remarkable prosperity and ensure ease and generosity in my relationships with family, friends, and the wider world. I am not entirely sure what work I would choose, but I would seek to expand my education. Once of age, perhaps I would spend a couple of years earning money working in the mines in Western Australia, then purchase a nice property with a small creek, build a garden, and possibly work part-time in the care sector while taking time to create beautiful and marketable art. I would also enjoy engaging in a bit of part-time research work. If I were to travel back in time instead of merely attaining a refreshed body, taking advantage of well-known investment opportunities as they arise would be highly appealing. I would invest in Apple, Microsoft, and Google, and of course, buy a nice computer and mine a substantial amount of Bitcoin. Story 89. I leave school and go live with my mother again for a few months. I spend that time with my baby sister and make the most of every day with her. Story 90. She was a little older than I was. It was bad, but this time it is going to be great. I am going to buy a lot of Apple stock. Story 91. If I were 16 again but knew everything I know now, I would start saving and investing money early. I would also worry less about trying to fit in and focus more on learning real-life skills. I would probably buy some Bitcoin before it became famous. Story 92. I would have been good to my mom. She unexpectedly passed away when I was 19, and I regret my typical teenage behavior. Story 93. I would have accepted the offer from my best friend's dad to teach us carpentry. He was an absolute master carpenter, creating the most intricate and beautiful furniture I have ever seen. I wouldn't be slowly dying in an office, suffering with unkind people and difficult personalities. Story 94. Aside from entering software engineering right away, everything I did contributed to my journey. Not all of my actions filled me with personal pride, but I accept where my choices have led me, whether they were right or wrong. I will still visit the same places and meet the same people, but I aim to treat them better this time. Story 95. Dropping out of high school and going directly to a local community college to earn an associate degree was an option. At that time, a high school diploma was not required to obtain an associate degree, but having an associate degree was necessary for admission to a good college. Story 96. Bitcoin. Start immediately and ensure you do not lose your wallet. If you go back to being 16, focus on school, save money, and when you turn 25 and Bitcoin launches, you can mine extensively. I would have retired by now. Story 97. I would invest every penny I could gather into America Online and Netscape. Then in 1993, I would convert it all to Apple Incorporated. Then, when Bitcoin launched, I would roll it all into cryptocurrencies and mining equipment. When our current president took office, I would liquidate everything and wait for the market to bottom out. Story 98. Save my family. Get healthy. Ask her out. Get rich. Find lifelong friends. Explore the world. Have a family. Create businesses. Set up a family. Retire. Story 99. In 2009 in Florida, I couldn't drive yet, and my parents were on the verge of divorce in my senior year. I would take the Bright Future Scholarship and a loan to cover the remaining 10% that it didn't cover, since this is the cheapest college will ever be. I would major in data security at a community college and join the Reserve Officers Training Corps. I would join the Air Force as a second lieutenant instead of enlisting in the Navy as I did in this timeline. The Air Force is easier, slower, and more enjoyable. And as an officer, it would probably be a lot less demanding. My military occupational specialty would be in data security. I would save as much cash as possible, not to an extreme level like a show-off, but enough to surprise people. Even today, as a long-term investor in Bitcoin, I don't engage in over-the-counter trades or self-custody. So I can't buy assets like Bitcoin or Palantir until they're available in major clearinghouses like Coinbase and Fidelity. This is in contrast to my previous risky investing in penny stocks while enlisted under Obama. This time, my version of risky investing would be in AMC and GameStop. Assuming 2 years at community college and 2 years finishing my degree at a university, followed by a 4-year commission in the Air Force, it would be 2019. I would have one of the most sought-after degrees in the tech sector, government clearances, and experience, along with a small student loan from community college. But the military would cover my university fees. COVID-19 would be approaching. I would be uncertain whether to take another commission or work in the private sector. If I chose private, I would aim for a position at Nvidia or Tesla, where I could have stock options and continue to stack Bitcoin. I would live well below my means, in the least expensive house in a nicer part of town. I would invest in the Nasdaq, even though I don't remember the exact stocks and timing that would yield the most gains during the pandemic. However, I know that tech stocks typically rise, fall, and then reach record highs under Trump. With Biden winning, it would be 2020. I would likely be in a private tech position, biding my time waiting for Bitcoin to reach $109,000. At that point, I would also consider acquiring a small company called MicroStrategy while keeping an ear to the ground for the tech stocks previously mentioned. As it gets tedious, I would stack Bitcoin and shares, cashing out on tech stocks when I see activity again. I already sold AMC when my shares increased from $5 to $600, and the same with GameStop. I would hold Bitcoin and likely invest in the Invesco QQQ Trust. As soon as Bitcoin hits $109,000, I would sell half my holdings, becoming a millionaire, and much closer to 1 billion than 1 million. I would pay taxes on my gains, save half of my cash as dry powder, and invest the remaining half in a portfolio of dividend funds like SPDR S&P 500 ETF Trust, Invesco QQQ Trust, Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, JP Morgan Equity Premium Income ETF, and JP Morgan Nasdaq Equity Premium Income ETF. I would be living in a low-tax state, probably Florida, so assuming I make $600 million in capital gains and half goes to taxes, that would leave me with a profit of $300 million. Half of that would go into the dividend-focused exchange-traded funds, yielding an annual income of $20 million, all passive. The other half of the profit would be split into high-yield savings accounts at the $250,000 FDIC limit, each generating 4% interest a year, totaling $10,000 each. Safe to say, I would retire early at age 32 in March 2025. I would be a multimillionaire with freedom money. My day-to-day life wouldn't be extraordinary. I would probably still drive a Toyota. I just wouldn't have to work or worry. My house and car would be paid for, my mom could retire early, and I would work out, possibly open a small charity for local cats, and enjoy a peaceful life. Story 100. I do not go on that date with that boy. We remain friends after that English project. I do not fall in love with him. He remains the unusual metal kid who sat behind me. I do not cheat or break his heart. He never knows I return to my abuser. He does not end his life. He is 33, and I was just a girl in his English class. Story 101. If I woke up tomorrow with my current mindset but found myself back in 1999 or 2000 in my 16-year-old body, I would overthink everything. I couldn't simply use my knowledge of the future to get rich or to relive my youth and experience being 16 again. I would be too concerned about what happens to the people I love who are happy in 2025. What if I were to interfere with their happy endings? That is why I would struggle with time travel. I would always be anxious about ruining lives. Story 102. Do I go back in time or become 16 in this timeline? I don't think I would want to navigate young adulthood in the world as it is right now. Story 103. End the relationship with the person I dated for 2 years who lacked the courage to tell me he was gay and who blamed me when he left after graduation. Story 104. Focus on learning at least one more language, as I am currently bilingual. Study engineering, followed by finance and management. Drink less, exercise more, improve my social skills and build relationships. Avoid getting trapped in stable relationships, especially if the girl does not share the same feelings. Earn as much money as possible to cover basic needs and invest any disposable income, dividing it equally among property, stocks, and bonds or other debt instruments. Travel more, exploring Scandinavian countries for a while. That's it. Story 105. Wait to meet him, go through the situation, knock on his door and tell him everything. Do not let him go again. Story 106. I am unsure how I will explain it to my wife. I may also lose my job and be younger than my children. Story 107. I likely became committed due to the weeks I spent openly weeping and feeling inconsolable about the permanent loss of my children. Story 108. Get away from my mother and never look back. That is pretty much what I did with a few investments here and there. Story 109. With all the knowledge I have now, just like everyone else, I am taking the stock market by storm and buying any stock I can afford. I am also exploring Bitcoin, thinking this is exciting. That aside, I will focus on honing the skills I truly enjoy so that when I reach this age again, I will not only be able to retire early but also have the time and skills to build, create, and maintain whatever I desire. Additionally, since I would have invested significantly, I would have had the funds to buy Joe and Fabrics and help prevent them from going under. Story 110. My child is one of the smartest and most driven individuals I have ever met. I find myself reflecting on every mistake once more. Story 111. Exposing and speaking out about my uncle, who sexually molested me for years since I was 7 years old. Story 112. We are going to Hollywood. I should have just hit the ground running and taken classes on the side. I did not need to go to college for performance. Story 113. Choose a party school instead of a competitive school. In my field, you need a Bachelor of Science degree, but it doesn't really matter where you obtained it, especially not after you've secured your first job. Instead of spending those 4 years writing papers and staying up all night, I could have spent 4 years enjoying myself. Story 114. Get my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder diagnosis and treatment. I could have gone to college instead of burning out, developing a substance use disorder, and wasting decades chasing pleasure. Story 115. It is 2001, so I have 8 years to save as much money as possible, and I will spend it all on Bitcoin. Story 116. Pursue scholarships and full college funding. Save all money from my job to invest at 18 in Apple, Netflix, and Bitcoin. Story 117. Move out sooner without any hard feelings. I would be more confident and social, allowing me to make the right friends. I plan to move to my current location and leave my hometown earlier. I will avoid smoking and drugs and focus on learning tattooing. Story 118. Spend more time with the friends who left us too soon. Get to know my grandfather better. Make some investments so I won't have to worry about money. Then ensure I visit the place where I met my wife. I cannot wait to fall in love with her all over again. Story 119. I begin weeping uncontrollably. My life is now fully displaced as my wife and children are lost to me. I try to regain my composure, not knowing whether I am even in the same timeline or some alternate one. I know what should happen, but I cannot guarantee it. Every connection I made growing up is nothing more than a tool to restore what I have lost. I find no joy or pleasure in dating teenagers while knowing that I am in a different world in a non-superpower way. I try to take care of my body, knowing that military training is all I will have while I retrace my steps. I invest a few dollars in Bitcoin since I am still poor and try my best not to mess up while the universe taunts me with the knowledge that I have become disconnected from a society that is not my reality. I do my best not to scare my wife, who has no knowledge of our current situation, which inevitably fails in one way or another. Either we connect and fate decides against having our children as they are today, or it crumbles, and I become the reason for the phrase crash out in the media. Hard pass on this situation. Story 120. When I was 16, I worked many hours in a fast food restaurant. I took that money and invested it. Plus, I didn't worry as much about what people thought. Story 121. At 16, my father announced that we were all moving to the United States from England. This was in 1979. By the following April, I was sitting in the back seat of a huge car that was longer than my house, on the 405 freeway in Los Angeles, on my way to 3 years of abject misery before returning to the United Kingdom. If I had known then what I know now, I would have told him to go boil his head. Story 122. Going to high school, most likely. I want to avoid having my college savings deplete in a year by attending a local college instead of going out of state. I want to prevent my family from losing more money on a fraudulent computer training program. I plan to invest in successful tech companies like Amazon when the time comes. I aim to live modestly. I want to hug my grandmother more because I realize that no amount of money is enough. I hope to help my parents exit the workforce earlier to avoid the financial crisis of 2008, so they will have more resources for retirement and my mother will be better off when the inevitable happens. I intend to make different relationship choices and to inform someone about their undiagnosed schizophrenia sooner. However, I am 16 with limited resources. Besides the fantasy of becoming a stock market expert, my options are limited. I just have a plan to avoid some of the mistakes made in the past. Story 123. Cut all fake friendships. Do not hold on to others' approval. Surround myself with people who will help me grow rather than degrade me over things that don't even matter. Story 124. My first move is to study harder. I did well in school, but I could have done much better and gained admission to a better university. I was too busy pursuing unhealthy relationships. My second move would be to stop or at least slow down on pursuing those unhealthy relationships. Story 125. I would hug my friend again. She was murdered when I was 17 while trying to break up with her boyfriend. Story 126. I don't know. I went to college and tried to get a good job the first time around and still ended up homeless. Story 127. I plan to cut my parents off as soon as I turn 18. I also need to figure out who I can warn about the events of September 11th. I'm not sure who would believe me, though. Story 128. Obligatory Bitcoin and stock investments aside, I need to dedicate more time to my brothers. They obviously needed my help, and I did not do enough as their big brother. My parents were working hard to make us comfortable, and I did not appreciate it at the time. I will help out more, much more. Story 129. I would change many aspects of my past. I would save more money when I was with my ex and invest in Bitcoin as soon as it became available. That way, when things went wrong, I would have a backup plan and enough money to pay my debts and move into my own house. Story 130. Buying Bitcoin as soon as I can. Saving every penny possible until then. Kissing that girl from high school. I missed my chance by not recognizing the signs. Then pursuing the Bitcoin opportunity. Story 131. 1. Choose friends wisely. Take education seriously. Start saving for the future. Spend more time with loved ones. Story 132. I wouldn't get together with my ex due to peer pressure. I would also hug my stepmom and encourage her to check her colon for cancer the first time she experiences symptoms, rather than trying to manage it with diets. She passed away in 2022, 2 months after my first child was born. I despise cancer. Story 133. Actually, I should have tried harder in school. I was a B student without trying, so if I had applied myself, I could have been a straight A student. I want to stop smoking. I will not sleep with my manager at work. I will avoid getting into a long-term relationship that would inevitably end. The person you date in high school is rarely the one you end up with. I plan to go to college out of state and leave my hometown. Story 134. Weep with joy. I had a very happy late adolescence. I probably just hung out with all my old friends and felt euphorically happy for a while. Story 135. Go start meeting new people. I was so afraid of rejection when I was a teenager. Now I just have no concern about it, which means that I can talk to anyone. However, with my current knowledge, I think I would find most teenagers quite difficult to relate to. Story 136. Start taking life more seriously, focusing not only on education but also on physical and mental health. In hindsight, it's clear that I may be on the spectrum and possibly have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I have set up my first doctor's appointment to begin the process of evaluation. Additionally, I want to start investing and managing my money better, as everyone desires financial stability. Story 137. 1. Reduce rice intake. Borrow money from mom, create a demat account in her name, and buy a few shares in various pharmaceutical companies. Concentrate more on passions. I will not skip my master's program. Story 138. Stock market strategies. I will work hard and prioritize my future. I am committed to setting myself up for a successful life and improving my eating habits. Story 139. Buy a computer and teach myself how to use it. This time, I won't be surprised by my mom trying to charge me rent as soon as the child support stopped. Story 140. I will be finishing school soon. The bullies threatened to cut my hair on the last day, so I beat them to it and got my hair cut. Nothing happened, so I didn't cut my hair. I would stand up to the bullies in a way that if I typed it out, I would get banned from the platform. I would dedicate myself to my art, work hard at art college, and say no when a casual friend asks to stay for a week or two. I would avoid getting involved with a girl named Kelly and pursue a career in the arts without getting involved with a woman named Sally. I would invest in companies like Apple and Amazon, work hard when asked to join a band, and truly contribute. Lastly, I would learn to drive. Story 141. I would have chosen different classes in high school and prepared for my current career goals earlier. I realize I may sound uninteresting, and I'm not particularly eager to climb the corporate ladder. I just want to thoroughly understand what I will be doing professionally soon. It's a lot of information, very technical and easy to dive deep into, so it feels like the time I have before starting my work is too short to learn it all. I wish I had known what I have come to love doing much earlier. I also would have valued some relationships more and others less. Story 142. This is tough. My teenage years were amazing but filled with substance abuse and reckless behavior. My early adulthood was a battle with mental health that I almost lost on several occasions. I missed several once-in-a-lifetime opportunities before getting sober and finding treatment that worked for me. By the time I got it all together, I was in a decent place but starting from the bottom. That said, there is no way I would have met my wife if I hadn't gone through all that pain. I don't get to be the person I am today and form all my meaningful relationships. I don't know if I have the strength to do it all again. I definitely can't start drinking again. I don't have the strength to get sober a second time. However, if I don't drink, I don't meet the people who go on to shape who I am today. Fundamentally, I think I would end up more successful but far worse off. In the end, I still grieve the past, I mourn the loss of my present, and I wonder about how my future would have turned out. Story 143. I wouldn't back out of ending my life. I would take that last camping trip. I am now in my 50s and I feel incredibly lonely. I am married but still feel lonely. I have no friends and have just been diagnosed with a lifetime illness. Most of my days are spent feeling lonely, in pain, and scared. Without anyone to talk to about my feelings, I continue to feel isolated. Story 144. Spending time with my best friend again, even though I know he will pass away in 10 years from an unknown medical condition. Story 145. Time travel or just becoming young? Time travel. prevent a lot of issues from occurring. Just being young, continue my education. Story 146. I sought the mental health support I needed. I found a good therapist and the right medication. I started getting treatment for attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder. I began to discover what felt true and right for me instead of trying to be the good kid. I embraced and explored my sexuality. I let go of shame, enjoyed my youth, and had more fulfilling experiences. Story 147. Apple was 25 cents per share when I was 16. I would invest every penny I earned working at the hardware store into it. I would skip college and drop out of high school just to work full-time and purchase more Apple stock. I worked for 10 years doing that and also bought into Amazon's initial public offering at $18 per share. In the best-case scenario, I would have some knowledge that would convince my parents I knew what I was talking about, so they could invest their money into the same as I was working for minimum wage, and they at least had some disposable income. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.